Hey, hi. I thought I would do another video. It seems like the first video that I did was nice, and a while ago I tried to do some video podcast, and that was a lot of work, and I was badly organized. So I think these little capsules of video that I'm doing are maybe more appropriate, and I will do one. I'll try to do one when I do a a blog post. I would also do a video to kind of complement that. And I wanted to make a video about the plan. What I mean by the plan is recently I'm starting to have more and more people that are straight beginners into making music, and they want a plan on how they can become good at music production. By good, what I mean by good is they want to be able to do something that is very close to what they hear in mind when they have an idea. They want to put that into a song, and sometimes they feel like they're lacking the technical vocabulary understanding to be able to translate what they have here to the song or the computer final song, right? I can't talk, right? And I made a blog post that was called the lessons that I've learned after years of making music. And I thought that, if I had to redo my entire career, and if I had to talk to my younger self and give or pass some lessons that I've learned the hard way by success and failure, I would kind of share some of my wisdom that I have today. And also I would propose a plan of like, how can one learn music production from scratch? But like in hindsight, when I think about how I have learned music, especially electronic music, I think that the way I did it worked really good. And while it's difficult to say that this plan worked for me and it should work for everyone else, would be a bit, I don't think it would be real. I can suggest a way of working that maybe will work with a lot of people. So for instance, some of the things that I've learned into music making, and this is kind of what I suggest to new ones, is like the first thing that I find is important to learn when you want to make music is just get familiar with your computer and the softwares. I know it sounds kind of silly and really boring, but sometimes, and this is way too often, I would say, I train people that are beginners and they're really struggling understanding the computer world and how folders work and organizing folders and compressing and files and then opening a file at that place, and samples have to be displayed at that place, and all this, which is very kind of natural and intuitive for many users. For others, it's not at all. And if you have difficulty with that, it's going to be really difficult to pave yourself in smoothly into the electronic world, because it's electronic, it's in the computer, it's in softwares, it's in gear, and all that is electronic based. And the more it is challenging for you, the learning curve is going to be really harsh. So that's like one of the first thing. And I think like the easiest way to learn making music, electronic music mainly, is to start by remixing or working with pre-made loops. And I know that's kind of frustrating for a lot of new students, because they're like, yeah, but that's not my sound, that's not what I want to do, it's not exactly how it sounds. But what I teach them is loops are important, because they teach you how like a loop should sound, and you get to get familiar with the sound, the names, like what is a percussion, what are tops, what is a bass, pad, lead, all these like terms are going to be very abstract if you are completely brand new to all this, and even if you're new to music itself. So working with pre-made loops is extremely useful, I would say, because you don't have to worry so much. You just try to make your best with whatever you have in front of you, and you try to just improvise and accept wherever this will lead you to. Which brings me to a fact that was for me pretty amazing back then. In the 90s, we had a lot of technical limitations when it came to making music compared to today. And limitations are actually a good thing, because when you're limited by not knowing, there's a lot of like things and problems that you are going to overlook, meaning that they're very secondary and you're kind of just focused on making things happen. So you're not really worried about mixing problems and conflicts and stuff like that. There will be some roadblocks, but it will be not like the things that I deal with when I make a song. After 30 years of making music, if you make a song, you have so much to think about that sometimes it's very difficult to start making a new song. And it's my case. Not finishing, it's starting, because I see all the work that has to be done and I'm like, oh my God, not again. And plus, after 30 years, you've done a lot of things. And if you don't want to repeat yourself, then that's also another complex challenge that you deal with, because you will have to reinvent yourself each time you make a new song, which is extremely mind-boggling. And in my case, sometimes it leads to severe writer's block. And my writer's block happen when I try to overdo it, or when I try to do something that is not me. So you want to try to reinvent yourself, but you want to keep a little bit of yourself. And eventually you find the sweet spot, and then you find the zone of fun. And that's kind of like what will drive you to make music. And that's the part that I'm trying to teach beginners, which is really about finding the fun into what you know. And if it doesn't sound quite perfect, it's okay. I mean, even with years of experience and all the knowledge, I still can't really make exactly what I hear in my mind. And I've learned to be okay with that. It's fine. And I'm just kind of like making the best of what I have. And that like removes a lot of stress and removes a lot of this, that I get otherwise sludge, into the sludge zone where nothing really moves anymore. So one fact is that limitation can be a real advantage sometimes. The other thing that I've learned and that I pass to people into this plan is that you will grow as an artist, as a musician, if you practice. And the trap that this brings people to is to think that if they acquire gear or plugins or something, this will speed up how things will be easy for them. It will be easy, yes, in a way, but not as much as if you practice. I've so much experience mixing and doing music that sometimes I can do a lot with almost no plugins or no gear at all. And when I start bringing gear, I slow down, because sometimes I open like modular and there's a problem, and I have to reboot, or I have to update the firmware or something, and it's just really, really slow. And I understand some people really love the physical part of it, but for me, with all the practice I have, when I'm in front of my DAW, I am blazing fast, and that's something that is due to practicing and practicing and practicing. So not relying on gear and tools will eventually pay off, and Then when you have used a lot of these plugins and synth, then you know that, okay, now I'm really, really solid with this. I can expand and get the hardware version of whatever I'm using. And then you won't be like facing this learning curve again. The other thing that I pass to people that learn is that making a song is not making music. And I know this like sounds controversial, but making music is a lot of things. It's not just finishing songs or making songs. Finishing songs, I often say it's a commercial way of making music. By that, what I mean is that a song is a recorded segment of you making music and finding an idea, and then you want to pass that story to someone else to listen to, or you want to sell it. But making music, if I'm making folk music, or if I would play guitar, if I pick up my guitar and I sit here and I just play for myself, that is making music. I'm not doing a song. I'm just playing music for myself for the sake of the sound, and it's soothing. And we think that somehow in electronic music we can't have that, but it's not true. Like sometimes I just sit and record music, and by what I'm doing by that is I'm just playing, noodling around, and I'm not trying to make a song. That's super important because I'm basically experimenting with the tools and playing with some stuff and see how it sounds. And from there will emerge something. Do I have to make a song? No. Can I make a song? Yes, I can. And it can be fun. And once you have your song, then, you can pass it. But it's not the whole thing. And it's also not because you record a song that you're entitled that people will love it, listen to it, want to release it. And maybe, like all the songs that you've made, you don't have to release them or show them to the world. Some songs maybe you want to keep for yourself, and that's okay. Or just for your friends. If you seek for validation for the music that you do, you're opening yourself to two issues. First is that you might get misleading feedback, because if everyone can be a movie critic or a food critic or politician, and like telling the world like, giving health tips to people without being a doctor, people can also give you a lot of misleading feedback when it comes to your music. And I had so many times feedback from people that were not musicians telling me like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, don't do this, don't do that. And I'm like, now whenever people are giving me feedback, I'm like, I listen to maybe 5% of it, but most of the time I get irritated and annoyed. I just, I would prefer that they say they like it or dislike it, but I'm not really interested in like their opinion on how it should be done. That's not what I share in music. So yeah, and the more feedback you get, sometimes it can actually bring you into a direction of fixing something that doesn't need to be fixed at all. We run a feedback group, and sometimes I see people providing feedback to others, and I'm just rolling my eyes because their feedback is totally personal. It's nothing technical. It's nothing that is neutral. If the hi-hats are really loud and hurting my ears, yes, I want to know, because that's unpleasant. But if the hi-hats came at 1 minute 05 and you think it should be better that they come at 30 seconds, that's totally arbitrary and not useful at all. I see a lot of people being too obsessed about the quality of the production and the mix, and in my opinion, they should spend more time on the originality and the quality of their ideas and hooks in the first place. Because I would say that with time, solid ideas and hooks, they age much better than good production. Good production is something that sometimes it's kind of frozen in time. There will be trends of like, okay, this is good production, and then you roll back 5 years later or 10 years later, and whatever was good back then sounds awful now. And a good example of that is, you know, music from the 70s or the 60s, or music from the 90s, the 80s. There's a lot of stuff that would need to be remastered with the technology that we have today. And even the technology that we have today, you know, sometimes you have to be careful. There was a point in time where, you know, something really, really loud was supposed to be great. And now when I listen to music that was mastered extremely loud, I listen to that, it's unbearable. It's something that is not fun to listen to at all. But there was a point in time where that was good. So, you know, sometimes I hear an amazing idea in a song. The production is crap, but the idea is sometimes so good that, you know, I'm like, my mind is being tricked and accepts the poor production quality because the hook is good. And, you know, like, I think, you know, lo-fi hip hop and lo-fi house, there's a lot of it that people that were producing it originally were technically challenged or technically not good. And people were like, wow, it sounds kind of crap, but I kind of like it because it sounds vintage. But they were trying to reproduce music that were stuck from a time where there was technical challenges, you know. So it's kind of silly that we have so much technology, but we want to sound shit. And, you know, okay, well, it's part of the genre. So focusing on finding good ideas, to me, is crucial. And if, you know, finding good ideas, even if you don't know much about music production, this is something everyone can do. You can find good ideas into listening to other music, or listening to videos, or recording, or finding odd samples in an obscure website. And there's this kind of luck factor that I find that people that just are brand new to making music have, that people like me don't have anymore, because we're blinded by all these technical things that are sometimes irrelevant. So yeah, focusing on finding good ideas is super important. Another point is the community. And that, in the last video I was talking about labels, but finding people that like your music and finding people that are responsive to what you do as a musician is way more important than finding labels. And I know some people are going to disagree with that, but if you find community that likes your music, this will feed your creativity. And this is how genre starts. You know, if we think about Detroit techno became big because there was a community wanting that, and they were loving it, and the artists would be making more, and the people wanting more. And this kind of like cycle of inspiration is what drives people to make the music that they do. So if you don't have a community and you depend on a label to be signed, you might be challenged at some point if the label drops you, doesn't like your music, or decides to change its direction. Then you don't have the community to support you. But if you have the community, then the label is secondary, and you make music for people that enjoy it. And that's the point of making music in the first place. The label is there to commercialize your music. And if you develop a dependency towards a label, then you become in a very fragile position. And you want to avoid that. That's like very frustrating as an artist. Now, in communities, there's a lot of people that make music sometimes. And one of the things that I see a lot for people that are not starting, but people that have been there for a few years and are teaching or making music, is they fall into this competitive mode, this competitive mindset. And I explained them that the only person they're in competition with is themselves. People think that if someone has success, it takes something away from them. It takes them, their success away. And success is not a pie. It's not like share, like you will get this and this will get that and you will get that, sorry. Success is a cycle. People has it and then doesn't have it, and then has it and doesn't have it. And usually when you're in the middle of a peak and a low, you will not be satisfied with where you are because you're not in the positive zone. And even if they're in the positive zone, sometimes it will feel like it's not enough. It could be more. It could be, why is this website not talking about me, but they're talking about someone that does the same music as me? Why is these DJs playing his music, but not mine? So that's competitive. And success is kind of like an equation, a lottery, where there's a timing related to the number of interactions that you have with certain people. So the success of a song or a success of your, whatever you define as success, is a momentum. You need to build a momentum. If you don't build a momentum, you won't get to this top of the wave that you can surf. And a lot of people think and put a lot of pressure into making this one song that will create momentum. And momentum is not created by one song being made. It's about the succession of music that is made, interaction with people that can influence other people, being present to your community, not being an asshole. So all these things build up. And when you build up properly and things are just evolving organically, eventually you build that wave. And then you should like harvest something out of that. If you don't, it's no one's fault except yours. And if you start envy or jealousy or competition towards other people that have it, your momentum will drop. It will most probably even die. And then you'll have to rebuild again. So this is why I say that competition is something that is completely, it's an illusion. It's something that we can fall for, but whenever you have for that or you envy someone, my reaction is that when I see someone having success, I will support, I will cherish, I will be like, awesome. I will be, yeah, you go, guy, do it. And sometimes what happens is that if you support, encourage, and participate to the success of someone else, there's more chances that eventually this will feed your own momentum, because you're part of the wave. Instead of looking at it, you go in it and you go into his momentum. And honestly, sometimes it's fun to celebrate the success of someone else. When it's nice, it can be beautiful. I've seen some artists emerge and become, better version of themselves, and witnessing that and hearing what was coming out sometimes was inspiring for me. And I didn't feel like it was taken away from me. I felt like the envy to participate into this. So that's kind of like something I would pass to my younger self, because I felt into the competitive mind. There was a time in my life where I felt that, but when I changed my mentality about this, I never had this again after that. One last thing is hits. This is a kind of funny topic because a lot of people are telling me like, why don't you write a hit, something that everyone will love? And well, the answer is no one knows what everyone will love. And sometimes I've seen people have a crazy budget hiring producers, me included, into building a hit. Like that's their mindset. They say we're building a hit. And I would say that in 90% of the time, these songs ended up being a flop or just like something that got a bit of attention and then everyone forgot about. Hits are not being written, they're not composed. Hits happen or they don't. And when they do, you usually don't know it's going to be a hit. You make a song and it then can go viral or someone picks it up and play it. And you never ever can expect when this is going to happen. Sometimes you can hear a song and be like, oh wow, this is going to be a hit. But your own music, honestly, and this is something I've said many times, like sometimes I've worked into pleasing and do something ear pleasing, and it was a catastrophe. Like it didn't work at all. And one of my song that was one of the most one hit that I made, it's a song that I've never ever expected to be doing good in sales, but it got charted by Richie Houghton and it exploded. And it was kind of an adventurous song. Like it's not something like easy either, but seems like it was really well received. So to try to focus on making a hit and be extremely protective of the way you made it and all that mindset that is also a competition where my song is better than yours, that's completely illusionary. There's no better song. There's no songs that is like going to do better than some others. All that is a lottery. All that you have no control. So what does it come down to? Finding hooks, opening up your zone of fun for making music, and eventually expanding whatever you do to your community. And your community will decide if it's a hit or not, and if your music is appropriate for the community. Yeah, long video. Hopefully it helps with something.